Hello and welcome back to this level of Let's Code. We're on level 11 this time, and we are going to be using conditional blocks for the first time. So conditional blocks will tell a program if something happens, we want a certain action to be triggered. If that condition isn't met, then it doesn't happen. So it's basically like adding a yes or no question into our code where yes will cause an action and no will cause an inaction. So I'm going to share my screen with you and jump right in. All right, so here we are with the bees, and we need to collect all of the nectar using as few blocks as possible. So I'm looking at the way that the flowers are around this path, and it's kind of like an oval path, and there's no pattern to it. So the conditional block is what I have to use to get the nectar. So I'm just going to pull this out because I know I'm going to need it, and I'm going to drop it into my workspace. It says, if there's a flower, get nectar. So I'm just going to link that together. All right. And let's see. I'm going to need to kind of move along this path. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 movements. So that seems like a great place for a repeat block. So I'm going to move forward 6 times, and then I'm going to add this condition. So basically, I can use my step button here. So I'm going to use the step button to move forward. So I'm going to move forward in my code. So that goes to move forward. And then if I step again, it's going to check if there's a flower, get nectar, and there is. So he gloms it up. And that's going to allow me to move all the way down that row. And it doesn't matter if there's a flower there or not, it will be able to do it. So let me hit reset and just run it. That way I know it works because I got the first one, but let's just run it to make sure I go all the way down to the corner where I expect to be. All right. So I knew it wasn't going to work, but I got down to that corner, which is where I expected to be. So now after I get to that corner, I need to make a turn. So that's a left-hand turn. So I'm going to add a left-hand turn. And then I'm going to move forward 1, 2 blocks. I'm going to add them in. And then I'm going to make another left-hand turn. And that should bring me right there. So let me hit run and just see if I go where I'm supposed to go. Because I want to make sure I get where I'm expecting before I finish this code up. All right, looks good. Again, it says I didn't do the right amount of nectar, but I knew that. But I made it where I wanted. So now let me basically recreate what I did on the left side here on the right side. So I'm going to use I only have 1 block left. I got to figure out a way to make sure that this happens using just 1 more block. So I think that this is a perfect spot to use another repeat. And I'm going to nest this whole program inside of it. And if I repeat it twice, that way I can reuse this part of the code twice, but only using 1 block. I think that'll work. So let me hit run. Off he goes. Made it to the end, turning around, and he's doing it again. It worked. Perfect. So I started out by grabbing my if conditional block and adding the get nectar to it. I figured out how many places I needed to move, so I used my repeat block. So basically I started with just this part to get me down to that bottom left corner. Then I added this sequence to get down to the bottom right corner. And then I realized I only had 1 block left, so I put the whole thing in a repeat loop to get me around the other half of the shape. So let's skip on over to a harder assignment. So I'm going to go all the way towards the end. Okay, and I'm just going to hit start over. All right. So this one is a little bit different. So this one says there will be either a flower or a honeycomb under each of these clouds. Collect nectar if there's a flower. Otherwise, make the honey because there's a honeycomb. So it's basically telling me either there's a flower or a honeycomb hiding underneath each cloud. And if there's a flower, I want to get nectar. And if there is a honeycomb, I want to make honey. So this conditional block is called if else, because if there's a flower, do this. If not, do that. So this is kind of an either or. So instead of yes, no, this is either or. Now, I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with like those Roomba robots, and they use code just like this to navigate around. So as they're kind of learning the way around your room, they use conditional codes like this. So if the path ahead is clear, it will go ahead. But if the path ahead is not clear, like it bumps into something, then it will do something else. It will like turn and back up and try a different direction. And that's how it's able to kind of map out where the furniture is and where the walls are and boundaries and clean the whole room. They actually use conditional blocks just like this. So I'm looking at this problem and I noticed that it's a circle. So to me, this looks like another perfect place to use a repeat block. So I'm gonna set that to 4 because it's not really a circle, it's a square. There's 4 sides to my square. And I know that my if else, so if there's a flower, I'm gonna get nectar. But if there's not a flower, that means it's a honeycomb and I need to make honey. So I'm gonna set that up. And let's see, I'm gonna have to move down to this corner. So that's 1, 2, 3. So you know what? I'm going to use another repeat because anytime there's more than 2 of the same thing, might as well use a repeat. So I'm going to move forward 3 times. 1, 2, 3. That'll get me to this first one. And then I can try my conditional block, my if else. So if there's a flower, it will get nectar. If not, it will make honey. Then I need to make a right turn to line up for the next side. I think I've got it. So let me hit run and we'll see if that worked. All right, it worked. So let me go back just so we can take another look at what we just created. So the first thing I noticed, let me hit reset, is that this was a pattern. So every time I see patterns, I always want to use repeat blocks because I know that way I could use less blocks. So the first thing I did was I dragged out a repeat block and I set it to 4 because there are 4 sides to this shape. I realized that I'd have to move 3 spaces, 1, 2, 3 spaces to get down to the next corner. So I used a repeat block to move down to that corner with my moves. I added my conditional block, my if at flower, do get nectar. If it's not a flower, that means that it's a honeycomb, so make honey. So either or. Then I needed to turn right, and the pattern could complete. So it was able to go around in that circle. Whoop. Whoops, I hit the run. All right. So let me stop sharing my screen. I'll go back. All right. So on this lesson, we're going to combine some of those repeats and loops, and especially nested loops where you have one loop inside of another. That's what they call nested loops. We're also going to be using those new tools, the conditional block. So we've got if, which is like a yes or no question. And then we got if else, which is kind of like an either or question. So when we present this question to the code, it will look for a condition. And if that condition is met, it will either do the action. If the condition is not met, it will not do the action. If it's an either or, it will do one action or the other. So if is yes, no. If else is either or. All right. Good luck. I know that you can get this done. It's not as tough as it sounds. And I will see you next time.